I can't understand how one day you can talk about starting a family and preparing for married life, and the next day cheat with a lover without remorse. My wife always seemed like an ordinary attractive woman. Like me, she sought financial stability so that she could build a strong family. We wanted our children to have no need for anything. This was an idea we shared together over the past few years. However, I never thought that she could do such a thing by betraying me and think that it would go without consequences. My name is Jason Thompson. I am married to Amber, who many call a beauty. She always looks elegant, wears makeup even on weekends. She doesn't show up in public without putting effort into her appearance. In her profession, she is extremely organized. I handle contracts and proposals while Amber teaches middle school English. Her vehicle is a white Hyundai Elantra, which seems to be the unofficial car of the public education system. There is a small dent on her fender left from when she rear-ended my car. We met in college when we both took the same class our freshman year. We each had our own aspirations. I was looking for a good job and wanted to start a family, while her goals revolved around achieving success. After graduation, we got married and life seemed good. Things moved forward during the 8 years of our marriage. One evening when I came home from work, Amber met me in my bathrobe. She asked if I wanted to join her in the bedroom. Such an offer was impossible to refuse. Taking my hand, she led me to our bed. The next hour flew by like a blur. It was unforgettable. After our heartbeats calmed down, Amber told me to wait and headed to the kitchen. She soon returned with a pizza and a 6-pack of beer. We took a bite and drank a bottle of beer each. Then she asked a question, "Jason, do you think we can start a family?" I smiled. We had discussed starting a family before, but felt the time wasn't right yet. "Is that what you were thinking in November? Then I could have a baby during the school vacation," she continued. "Well, I think that's a great plan," I replied. "Do you want to celebrate some more?" She took my hint, and we set off on our second lap. After a short break, we started the third and final lap. I enjoyed a very restful night's rest. The next morning, Amber said, "Hey, just a heads up. I have a book club meeting tonight at 6 p.m., so dinner is in the microwave. I'll see you later, around 9:30 p.m. Leaving the house, I could feel the spring gate. The thought of starting a family excited me. Since Amber's parents live nearby, I called them during my lunch break and invited them over for the evening. "John, would you and Maggie mind coming over tonight? We have some exciting news to share. Amber has a book club meeting and should be back around 9:30 p.m. Let me check in with Maggie real quick." John replied after a brief pause, "Sure, I'll see you tonight, around 10 o'clock p.m. That same afternoon, I received an email that left me puzzled. Meeting at the garden at 18 o'clock. Ensure punctuality. The sender of the email remained unidentified to me. Trying to concentrate on work proved futile as my curiosity completely consumed me. I was unable to concentrate until 6 o'clock p.m. By then, several cars had arrived, but none of them were familiar to me. My surprise was indescribable when I saw Amber's car stopped in front of mine. She stepped out of the car, dressed in a stunning blue ensemble that I had not previously seen her wearing. Choosing such a meeting place was completely unexpected for her. I locked my car and took a few steps before I stopped in shock. A man stepped out of a nearby car and she took his hands in hers. He kissed her briefly on the cheek. I felt dizzy, my legs shook, and my stomach sweated profusely. I leaned against the car, overwhelmed by despair. Gathering my strength, I grabbed a padded golf hat, windbreaker, and sunglasses. Amber had never seen me on the golf course, so I hoped she wouldn't recognize me. I hurried into the lobby where I saw Amber in the lounge area while a man was checking in at the counter. I walked over to a booth with brochures advertising hot air balloon rides and tours, pretending to be interested in the offerings. I discreetly pulled out my phone and activated the video recording feature, using the brochure to hide it. Glancing over at Amber, I felt a pang of disappointment when I saw her with a 6-pack of bottles and a pizza box. Once that man finished checking in, they headed for the elevators. I kept taking notes as they entered the elevator. I hurried to the stairs, which were only 4 floors, and figured I had a good chance of following them. After stopping briefly on the 2nd floor, I realized that they must have already left for the 3rd floor. Just in time, I noticed them walking away from me. They stopped a few rooms from the end of the hallway, and the man pulled out his key card. He held the door for Amber as she walked in, and the door closed behind them. I turned off the video and stood there pondering my next move. In the end, I decided to avoid a confrontation and walked back to the parking lot. A mischievous idea popped into my head. I pulled out my phone and checked to see if we were eligible for free towing if the car was within 50 miles. I called the towing service, saying my wife's car wouldn't start, and asked if they could tow it home. They replied that they would be there in 20 to 30 minutes. I agreed and sat down to wait in my car, positioning myself next to Amber's car. Inside Amber's car, I noticed a gym bag on the passenger seat. Curiosity took over and I decided to look inside. There was a change of clothes and a tampon. Afterward, I called my friend Charlie, who is a repairman, and asked him to replace my door locks tonight. "Hey Charlie, it's Jason. Could you change my door locks tonight? Yeah, I'm having some problems." Charlie agreed, and we arranged to meet around 7 p.m. I figured that the man might have left his car unlocked. I checked and found a car seat in the back, indicating that he had a wife and small child. In the glove compartment, I found a registration card in Chad Bennett's name. I put it in my pocket and got out of the car. AAA service arrived shortly thereafter. After exchanging pleasantries, they began towing Amber's car. The loading went quickly, and soon the tow truck was gone. I followed it home. We arrived at the same time. It took a few minutes to park Amber's car after I tipped the guy. Once the tow truck left, I opened the garage door, drove the car inside, and parked it. Then I carried the gym bag into the house and threw it on the couch. I had about 2 hours left before she returned from book club. I grabbed a box of leaf bags and large trash bags, headed for her closet. After a few trash bags, her closet was cleaned out. I then walked over to the dresser and put her underwear and jewelry into new bags. The next step was the bathroom, where all the cosmetic perfume and soap were packed into another bag. I carried the bags into the garage and stacked them in the back seat of Amber's Elantra, where there wasn't much room. Charlie arrived on time and started changing the locks. He also recommended resetting the garage door opener devices, so now only my mechanism worked. I poured myself a glass of water and then a shot of whiskey. It was about 9:00 p.m., and I left everything ready in case of unforeseen events. Soon I only had a few minutes to spare. I pulled out our shared credit cards, called the bank, and reported them stolen. Then I found the registration form and looked up the address. Brad and Christy were listed as the owners. I needed to contact Christy and report the fine. Shortly after 9 p.m., my phone rang. It was Amber. She reported that her car had been stolen. Her voice was shaking and she sounded worried. "Actually, Amber, I had it towed home. Why don't you ask Chad to give you a ride?" I suggested. She was shocked. I finished talking and my heart was pounding, my palms sweating. The doorbell rang. Who could have come at this late hour? Turns out it was John and Maggie. I'd forgotten I'd invited them over tonight. This promised to be interesting. "John, Maggie, please come in. Can I get you something to drink?" I had just talked to Amber and expected her to arrive soon. They made themselves comfortable on the couch. I handed John a beer. I was nervous. It was obvious it wasn't Chad who had arrived, but a cab pulled up to the house and dropped Amber off. She hurried down the sidewalk and tried to use the key, but was unsuccessful. She rang the doorbell and I let her in. Her mascara was smeared. She was crying. Before Amber could explain what had happened, I interrupted her. "I'm so sorry, Mom, Dad, that you're here." Maggie asked worriedly, "Sweetheart, what happened? Are you okay?" I interjected, "Amber, I called your parents around noon today and let them know we have an important announcement for them." Continuing, I explained, "Last night Amber and I were spending time together as a married couple and she started talking about continuing our life together. Amber then went downstairs, got some pizza and beer, and then we had dinner in bed." Amber turned to me with a question. "Do you think we could start a family? Maybe in a few months so I can have a baby between school years?" In response, Maggie exclaimed, "Amber, that's fantastic." But I loudly interrupted them. "Wait, there's more." Around 6 o'clock that evening, I found out that Amber was having romantic relationships not only with me, but with other men as well. I continued. Amber exhaled and said, "Jason, we need to discuss this in private. Let's not do this now." I ignored her request and stated, "She's either doing this for money or she's having affairs on the side and making me look like a deer. I refuse to stay married to her, whatever it is." Amber fell to her knees, sobbing. At this point, John wanted to intervene. But I said, "I have a video, let's watch it together." The video showed Amber in a familiar outfit. She's waiting for him. Look, she's got pizza and beer for him too. They head to the elevator. There's nothing on the second floor. They're on the third floor, John commented. Amber, you're a woman of easy virtue, John concluded. Amber interjected, "Daddy, no. So, do you have lovers?" He asked Amber. She remained silent, sobbing even harder now. "Where's your wedding ring, Amber?" I asked. She replied, "It's at the jewelry store for cleaning." "Really? I swear on your mother's grave," she said. After apologizing to Maggie, Amber realized she had been caught. "Maggie, could you open that gym bag and find the ring box? You see, those are the change of clothes she takes with her to trick me," I asked. Maggie pulled out the ring box, opened it, and walked over to Amber. When Amber reached out her hand, Maggie slapped her hard across the face. "How could you?" Maggie exclaimed. Amber was now sobbing uncontrollably. "Jason, what's next?" John asked. I replied, "I've packed all her stuff and it's loaded into her car. Locks changed, credit cards canceled." Amber declared in desperation, "No, no, no. I want to stay with you, Jason. I love you. I still want your baby." But I sharply replied, "Please leave now." She insisted on staying. At this point, John Rose got up from his seat, walked over to Amber, grabbed her purse, and then grabbed her ear firmly, forcing her to her feet as she screamed in pain. He took her into the garage and guided her to her car. "Get in and drive away. We're not welcome here either," John ordered a stunned Amber. She lowered herself into the car seat, resting her head on the steering wheel. John stood motionless, grasping the window. "Go ahead and drive away," he said. She started the engine and pulled into reverse. John, Maggie, and I watched from the porch as she drove slowly away. We hugged and promised to stay in touch. They apologized for their daughter, but I assured them there was no need to apologize, as it was all Amber's doing. After they left, I secured the house, poured myself a glass of whiskey, and collapsed on the couch. Tears streamed down my face. The next day, I woke up as if in a fog. After learning that Amber had withdrawn cash from the ATM, I emptied our account by paying off our credit card balances through electronic payments. I contacted HR to change my paycheck designation and began looking for an attorney to file divorce papers. On my way to Christy's house, I noticed Chad's absence and knocked on her door. I introduced myself as Jason and explained my connection through our spouses. I showed Christy a rather revealing video. She watched it carefully and asked when it was recorded. "Last night around 6:00 p.m., I replied. I confronted my wife when she returned around 9:30 p.m., and she didn't deny it. I suspect it's ongoing, but I have no concrete proof," I said. "What's your plan?" Christy asked. "Last night I asked Amber to leave. I just left my attorney's office today where they discussed preparing divorce papers," I said. Christy asked for my attorney's contact information. "Sure, let me grab a pen and paper," I offered. Amber tried to contact me several times, but I ignored her calls, transferring them to voicemail. She sent a message asking for permission to come into the house to get her computer and school records. "Can we talk?" she asked. I was wary of a face-to-face meeting and felt my palms sweat at the mere thought of it. With a smirk, I replied, "Let's aim for 9:30 p.m. Since I had a book club meeting, I spent the evening at the sports bar, trying not to consume too much alcohol. A glass of whiskey on the rocks gave me courage for the upcoming meeting. Upon arriving home around 9:20 p.m., I pulled into the garage and closed the door behind me. Amber was already waiting in her car without saying a word. I opened the front door. Amber was casually dressed in sweatpants, no makeup, her hair gathered in a ponytail. "Are you ready to talk?" she asked. I just shook my head. I didn't want to give her a chance to make her point with a rehearsed speech. She headed into the bedroom and then into the spare room we used as an office. Amber made several trips to gather all the necessary items. Each time she returned to the house, she asked, "Are you ready to talk?" But each time, I only shook my head. Finally, Amber couldn't contain herself any longer. "Jason, I love you. You're the only one I've ever loved. I made a huge mistake. I believe we can fix it. Please give me a chance. I need you," she begged. "You'll never realize the impact this has had on me," I objected. My attorney is preparing divorce papers and you'll be served either tomorrow or this weekend. Tears streamed down her cheeks, her lips trembling. Jason, I don't want a divorce. Please, can't we figure this out? You can ask me anything you want. I promise to be honest from now on and never give you a reason to doubt my love, she said. Amber, I only have one question that only I can ask myself. How could I have misjudged you so wrongly? You should go, I said, my eyes clouded with tears streaming down her face. Amber walked away, but not without one last request. Please think about it. I only want to be with you. One glass of whiskey wasn't enough. A few days later, as I was going through my emails, I came across a message revealing the whole affair. I replied, "Thank you, I owe you more than you can imagine. You are my guardian angel." I spent the entire evening wondering who could have tipped me off and for what reason. Eventually, I came to the conclusion that it must have been one of Amber's coworkers. I found a florist and arranged for a beautiful bouquet of roses to be sent to Amber's school, addressed to the teacher's lounge with a note, "For my guardian angel, thank you." The next evening, I received an email from my mysterious benefactor. "The flowers are beautiful. Thank you. Whoever you are. Thank you. I'm really looking forward to meeting you." A few days later, I decided to extend the invitation via email. "I would like to treat you and your partner to dinner as a token of my appreciation." The longer I stayed in this house, the more I felt I needed to sell it. There were too many painful memories here. Life became a struggle with emotions ranging from anger to self-pity. However, each new day seemed a little brighter. I began to regain my productivity at work, although I noticed that coworkers treated me with a certain wariness, as if I was contagious. About a week after sending my email to my mysterious benefactor, I received a curt reply. I've never been married, which made me reflect on my recent inability to correctly interpret feminine signals. I decided to rest and think about how best to respond in the morning. I arranged for flowers to be delivered to the teacher's lounge, enclosing a note offering dinner at any convenient time and place for anyone who wanted it. It felt like the therapeutic distraction I desperately needed. Eagerly, I waited for a response. Gradually, coworkers at work began to treat me the same way. One day during lunch, someone had the courage to ask if it was too early to talk about it. "Not really," I replied to those who were listening. She was having an affair and I had started the divorce process. "I need to get back to work. I'll be fine. Your support means a lot to me," I added as I left the dining room. My wait ended Friday night when I received an email from my guardian angel. The email said the flowers were beautiful. Meet me at the Oscars Saturday. She suggested I wear a casual pink dress. I had never heard of the Oscars before, but a quick internet search showed the place was about 40 miles away. Obviously, she didn't want to be seen with me. A smile played on my lips. I decided to put on my sunglasses and floppy golf hat with a windbreaker. This was something I really needed. I was so excited that I spent Saturday afternoon walking near the Oscar venue. Bought a dozen pink roses. A silver Elantra pulled up and a woman got out of it with a pink rose in her hair. I found her in the restaurant and asked her, "Perhaps these are for you." "Yes, they are beautiful. Please join me," she replied. "My name is Jason." "Ah, mine is Zoya. It's nice to finally meet you. You can take off your disguise if we're spotted here. That's the way it should be." "Nice to meet you, Zoya," I started to say, but she interrupted me. "Just so you know, this is our only meeting until your divorce is final. I don't date married men. There's a certain order in my world, and that's the way it's going to be." I'm fine with that too. It's too soon for me to sort out what's going on in my head and heart. Let's call it a fact-finding meeting. "So you're not on a date, no big deal," I replied. We ordered drinks, then dinner, after which we moved on to dessert and coffee. Zoya seemed about 30 years old, very much like me, with average looks. After dinner, we had a casual conversation about various topics while we sat with our coffee. I mustered up the courage to ask, "How did you know and why did you decide to tell me?" Zoya took a sip and sat down. She put the cup down and put her hand on mine. One day when I was checking test papers, I saw Amber come out of the teacher's restroom with a gym bag and a dress, which was uncharacteristic of her at school. Knowing that she often talked about you, I assumed that the two of you were planning a special night out. However, when I remembered her answering your call during lunch and mentioning that she would be attending book club again, it didn't fit the picture. As I mentioned earlier, my world operates on a certain order and this situation just didn't fit. I followed her to the garden where some guy approached her in the parking lot around 6 p.m. On the day I emailed you, I noticed her putting the same gym bag on her desk. Your name and email address were easy to find as they are on the teacher's emergency contact list. I had avoided using the school email address given Amber's organization. I assumed they meet at the same place and time, which turned out to be true. Since I have to work with these people, I need to hide my identity, at least for now. I never intended to hurt you, I uttered, sending her a quiet air kiss. The message hurt, but I know I shouldn't blame the messenger. Thanks, I'll leave first, she said, thanking me for the roses. I didn't get a chance to take the others home, she remarked as I paid the bill. Zoya interjected, you caught me off guard. My heart sank a little when the first flowers arrived, and it was even more intense with the second batch. You're pretty skillful at this. Oh, and just so you know, there were at least half a dozen women, even some married ones, who would have accepted your invitation to dinner. Ms. Zoya continued. I would like to suggest that you meet again for dinner, perhaps in a few months, I said. Good night, she replied as she left the restaurant. Communicating with her was incredibly easy. On Monday, I sent pink roses to the teacher's lounge along with a note saying the evening was great. Got an email rebuking me for not playing fair, but gradually found a balance with fewer and less frequent mood swings. A couple weeks later, I sent pink roses to the teacher's room again with the message, please remember me later this evening. That same evening, I received an email of just one word, unforgettable. Over the weekend, as I was reviewing contracts in my apartment, my phone rang from a private number. Hi Jason, it's Zoya. Am I interrupting something? She asked. I'm just changing channels and not finding anything to watch, so I guess I can stop and chat with you, she laughed. It's nice to hear your voice. How are you holding up? I'm doing okay, I replied. What brings you home Saturday night? I thought you had a line of people waiting to meet you. Well, keep thinking, she said. How are things going with Amber? I haven't talked to her since the day she left. She tries to call, but I let the calls go to voicemail. She sends a couple text messages every day. I'm looking forward to finalizing the divorce. The lawyers have come to an agreement, I continued. I guess technically I'm still married, so I was surprised when you called me. I explained that I don't date married men, but that doesn't mean that socializing with a married man going through a divorce is harmful. We continued our conversation for another 20 minutes and said goodnight to each other. I mentioned that I had a challenging week ahead of me and would really appreciate it if she stopped by next weekend. We'll see, good night, Zoya replied before hanging up. She was really easy to talk to. The next week she called again, and in subsequent conversations I got to know her better. She told me that during her sophomore year of college, she discovered that her boyfriend Jeff was cheating on her with her roommate. They had been together since high school. She recounted how he brushed it off with the words, "Hey, I'm a guy, it doesn't affect us." She immediately broke up with him and hasn't pursued a serious relationship since. It turned out we had a lot in common. I asked her, "It seems like it happened half a dozen years ago, and your defenses are still pretty high. Is that what lies ahead for me?" After a short silence, she replied, "I don't think so. I think you still have a lot of love to offer. Someone will talk you into trying again." She said she had attended a few dates but felt uncomfortable. I just wasn't interested until Zoya mentioned she was dating, but most men stopped calling when she didn't have sex with them after a few dates. On the eve of finalizing my divorce, Amber tried to contact me one last time. Please stop the divorce. I've changed. I realize what's really important, and that's you. Please, please, please stop this. I couldn't find the words to respond. If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. The day after my divorce from Amber was finalized, I received an email from Zoe that same evening. She wrote that now that I was free again, I could call her. I dialed the number she provided, but a man answered the phone. My heart sank. "Hi, is Zoya available?" I asked. "Zoe, this is your phone," the man called out loudly. Zoe picked up the phone and said hello. "Hi, this is Jason. Is this an inconvenient time? Can I call you back later?" "No, why do you ask? Are you okay?" I asked. Zoya laughed. "Calm down, I live at home." "That's my dad," she said. I breathed a sigh of relief. Wow, my heart dropped when he answered. "That's nice," Zoya replied. "Well, don't you have anger?" I asked. "Absolutely not. It means you care about me more than you want to show. I love that you caught me red-handed. It's pretty clear that I still have some issues to work on, she said. That's not a problem. I'm up for the challenge, I replied. We organized dinner the next night, which quickly became a twice-a-week thing for several months. We went on numerous dates each week. During one of our outings, Zoe asked, "Is Amber still trying to contact you?" I pulled out my phone, found a message thread with Amber, and handed it to Zoe. She silently looked through over 100 text messages. Amber used the messages as a diary of sorts, updating me on various aspects of her life, updates on John and Maggie's progress with her counseling, and updates on her coworkers' work. Zoe's eyes filled with tears as she remarked, "Jason, I feel her pain. She really does love you. If you think about it long enough, it makes sense." I explained to Zoe that I was still the same Jason she had fallen in love with and married. However, the Amber I loved and married is gone, and this Amber can never take her place. I continued to move forward. Zoe persistently asked why I never responded to her messages. I admitted that I didn't want to give her false hope of reconciliation. I also admitted that I never thought I'd find someone so soon after my divorce, but now I knew I wanted Zoya to be my wife, though I was still struggling to express my feelings. I resorted to gestures again, sending the teachers a dozen pink roses that said, "I think I love you." The next day I was overcome with anxiety. What if I said it too soon? What if her response wasn't what I hoped it would be? Shortly after lunch, my phone buzzed with a message from Zoe. "I know I love you," it read. About a week later, I finally made a decision and sent another dozen pink roses to the teacher's lounge. As the teachers began to gather for lunch in the living room, the school secretary walked in with a bouquet of flowers. "Ladies, we have another bouquet for someone," she announced. Katie, one of the lone teachers, eagerly rose from her seat and opened the enclosed envelope. "Oh look, will you marry me?" she exclaimed. The room exploded with a collective sigh. Kathy continued, "If the person this is for doesn't marry him, I'll take his name and phone number." Zoya couldn't contain her excitement and stood up to claim the roses from Kathy. "These are for me, thank you," Zoya declared. The hum of voices grew louder with disbelief. "Ice Princess, no way, who is he?" "Zoya, this is unbelievable," Katie interjected. "Wait, all this time they've been for you, who's the lucky guy?" "Jason Thompson," Zoya replied. "Amber's Jason is gone, now he's Zoe's Jason. Wow, Amber is going to go crazy," Katie predicted. While I was eating lunch at my desk, my secretary knocked on the door and asked, "Are you busy?" "Mel, what's wrong?" Zoe burst into the room with roses and exclaimed, "Yes, yes, look." But before throwing herself into my arms, she added, "Amber left school early that day due to illness and was absent for several days. She later applied to transfer to another school, and our messaging stopped." That day, our meeting with Zoya ended with hugs and kisses. I didn't want to disturb the harmony. One Sunday, as we were cuddling and watching a movie, Zoya suddenly asked, "Do you miss the closeness?" "Sure, but if I think about it too much, it brings up conflicting emotions," I replied. Zoya admitted, "I'm nervous, Jason. I'm afraid I might disappoint you in bed." I promised to do my best to please her and expressed confidence that she would do the same for me. We had a wonderful night and began to see each other more and more often after that. The intimacy with her was incredible, even though she seemed inexperienced. It went well for me, and because of her, I realized that I had a bright future. We had a small wedding ceremony, as Zoe's parents couldn't afford much. After the wedding, while going through a box of wedding cards, we found a card from Amber that said, "I will always love you." Zoe suggested I send Amber roses. I shook my head. I try never to hurt intentionally. After a moment of thought, Zoya walked over, hugged me tightly and kissed me, saying, "You're right, I married a good man." We have a daughter named Tris and a son named Jay. Zoya always invites me to join her at the book club meetings we hold at our home, which eliminates the need to travel. I'm still busy with my work, and one day we happened to run into Amber at the grocery store. Tris walked beside me, squeezing my finger while Zoya held Jay. "Amber, you look good. How are you doing?" I asked. "Jason, Zoe, it's good to see you both," Amber said. Zoe stepped in. "I heard you got the deputy principal job. Congratulations." "Thanks, it takes. The previous person wasn't very organized." "Well, I should get going." Amber said goodbye, holding back tears. I didn't notice any rings on her fingers, so she must still be single. We both got what we wanted 12 years ago. I had a son and daughter, and she found success through her efforts. Ironic how things turned out. And here we come to the end of this story. We'd love to know what you think of it, so feel free to leave a comment. Also, if you liked it, don't forget to put a like and subscribe to our channel. This will help you not to miss new, no less interesting and exciting stories. We wish you good luck.
Thank you so much for watching my video and your time. Please subscribe to my channel and click on the bell button. Also, I am very interested to know your personal opinion about this story. You can write it in the comments. I will definitely read it and reply to you personally.